Hello people, I'm the Comic Book Gamer, and today I'm going to be talking about the whole diversity in comics versus Comics Explained situation that's going on right now. So if you don't know, Comics Explained sort of took some pot shots at diversity in comics on Twitter, and that's how this whole thing happened. Now, I'm a big fan of both these guys. I've been a fan of Comics Explained for like a little over 2 years now, and diversity in comics I found about, I think, over a month ago, and so I'm a fan of both these guys. I think they're both good guys. I think from some people, diversity in comics gets a bad rap for no reason. A lot of people think he's some sexist, homophobe, racist, or something like that, when that's not the case at all. If you look at his videos, if you watch his videos, he's not like that at all. I don't agree with him on everything, but he's definitely not some bigot or anything like that. And he makes good content. Same with Comics Explained. I think they're both good guys, and they both make good content. So for some reason yesterday, Rob from Comics Explained decided to go on a big rant about just anti-diversity. Like, there's a big crowd out there that's anti-diversity, which isn't the case at all. I don't know why he thinks that, but he does, which is really confusing. But anyways, I'm going to be sort of answering some of the questions that he poses on here to the anti-diversity crowd, which there isn't such a thing as anti-diversity. No one's anti-diversity. No one is like, screw that, I don't want to see minorities succeed. Diversity is a bad thing. No one's like that. People are against forced diversity. But anyways, I'll get into that later. So let's start off with his first tweet, where Rob says, "Dear general public, the anti-diversity crowd does not represent a majority of the comic book community," which he's right, because the anti-diversity crowd doesn't exist. There's no one out there that is anti-diversity. There's no one out there that is going and just being completely against diversity. No one is like that. People are against diversity for the sake of diversity. This tokenism, this sort of checklist that you have to have one of everything. That you gotta have a black guy, a black woman, an Asian person. You have to go down this checklist. People are against that. People want good reasons for bringing in any character, and so it's kind of stupid to just have diversity for the sake of diversity, and that's what people are against. Yeah, so let's move on to his next tweet, where he says, "Dear anti-diversity crowd, make an argument against diversity or forced diversity without sounding racist." First off, I hate that he labels people that are against this forced diversity anti-diversity, because again, that doesn't exist. No one's anti-diversity. I'm not anti-diversity. I'm against this forced diversity that Marvel is doing right now, where they just kick out your favorite character and give you a new brand spanking new character that you don't care about at all, and they don't give you a choice about reading your old character. They're like, yep, you have to read this. Totally Awesome Hulk, that's what you got to read. Banner Hulk's gone, so this is your only choice. Read it, or that's it. You're not going to read any other Hulk, because there's no other Hulk going on, and I don't like that. But yeah. So he says, make an argument against diversity or forced diversity without sounding racist. I could make that argument, but I'm going to let Rob from Comics Explained make that argument for me. So roll the clip.
This is why diversity is really kind of a big thing, is because it's not fans who are inherently against comic book changes because of race. And so I don't really like the notion of diversity, because what diversity indicates is that fans are against these characters because they're minorities. They're against these characters because they're black, or because, you know, they're of Asian orientation, or, you know, because they're a woman or something like that. That's stupid. They're against this change because the characters that you know and love are suddenly just not there anymore.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself, Rob. That's what I was so confused about, was the fact that I thought Rob was on the same page as everyone else. Because in this video, you see he has common sense. He makes sense in this video, and it was during the whole time when Comic Historian made a video talking about, is diversity ruining comics? Because I believe this was around the time when the Marvel CEO, or not CEO or whatever, the head of Marvel guy was like, hey, diversity, people don't like diversity, and that's why our comics aren't selling. And he's an idiot and blaming diversity, which isn't the problem at all. But yeah, and so that's why Comic Story made a video, and the Comics Explained made a video, and then I made a video on it also, because I thought it was an interesting subject. And I 100% agree with what Rob says in that video. If you haven't watched it, I'll have it linked in the description. You should definitely watch it. It's a really good video. And he talks about how comic fans sort of feel betrayed, and it's not right to just kick out their favorite character, completely get rid of them, and replace them with a new one. You should give them options. You should have both. Like, he was talking about how you should have like a Tony Stark book and a Riri Williams book, so if someone wants to read one or the other, they can choose, which I 100% agree with. That's what DC is doing with Green Lantern right now. You have Hal Jordan the Green Lantern's Corps, which is sort of like Hal Jordan in the actual, you know, the original Lanterns. You've got Hal Jordan, you got, I believe, John Stewart and Kyle Rayner are in there. But anyways, yeah, you have Hal Jordan the Green Lantern Corps, and then if you want new Lanterns, you've got Green Lanterns, which has Jessica Cruz and Simon Baz, who are new Lanterns. Simon Baz is introduced during like sort of the middle of New 52, and then Jessica Cruz was introduced towards the end of it. So they're very new characters that have not been around for long, and they're in a book together. So you have that separation, instead of them just being like, we're just gonna get rid of John Stewart and Hal Jordan and everyone, they're just gonna go off that way, and here's your new Green Lanterns. People would be pissed about that, but instead they're like, hey, you can have both. And it's just like, why not both? That's the whole thing. If you want to introduce a new character, do it. But just don't get rid of the old character completely. Give us options. But yeah, I just always thought that was stupid when Marvel or DC would do that. I went on a whole rant on Twitter talking about this and talking about how there is no anti-diversity crowd, and there's a difference between introducing a new character and completely just replacing another character when you introduce a new one. I used Batwing as an example when I sort of ranted on Twitter about this, talking about how Batwing was a character that was introduced in the beginning of the New 52. He got his own book, he joined the Bat family, and no one was mad about this. There was no outrage because he wasn't replacing anyone at all. Batwing was just an addition to the Bat family. If you wanted to read his book, there you go. But if you wanted anyone else, you still had the main Batman book. You still had Red Hood and the Outlaws. If you wanted to read Jason Todd, you still had Nightwing. If you wanted to read Dick Grayson, you still had Batman and Robin. If you wanted to read Damian Wayne, you still had, I believe, Tim Drake was part of Teen Titans at that time, so you still had Teen Titans if you want to read Tim Drake. You still had, like, your whole Bat family. You still had Batgirl if you want to read Batgirl. He wasn't replacing anyone. He was just an addition, so everyone was fine with it. There was no one shaking their fist going, oh, screw that, we don't want a black guy to join the Bat family. No one was mad about that because no one cares. No one's getting all racist about this. This anti-diversity crowd doesn't exist. If this anti-diversity crowd exists, they would have been all over Batwing, but like, screw you. Same with Duke, who's the current sort of Robin, except he's not really a Robin. I don't really know what he is, but he's like he's this current sidekick to Batman, but he's not really a Robin, but he is. It's weird, but he's Batman's current sidekick, and no one is mad about him being Batman's sidekick because guess what? You still have Damian Wayne and Super Sons and the Teen Titans book. You still have Tim Drake, who's coming back during Detective Comics because he got killed off, but now he's coming back. You have Nightwing in his book, in his Nightwing book. You have Jason Todd in his Red Hood and the Outlaws book. So you still have everyone, and also Batgirl has her book. So you still have everyone. That's why no one's mad about Duke being a part of the Bat family. Again, this is how you do it. There's no problem here at all because you're not replacing anyone. So that's my argument. I hope I didn't sound too racist to you. I hope you 7 months ago didn't sound too racist to you, since you made a pretty good argument in that video. But Chuck Dixon, the legend himself, also made a really good argument for this when he talked about it on the Milo Yiannopoulos podcast, talking about the difference between forced diversity and a character that just happens to be black or Latino or whatever. So here, I'll just play the clip from that.
They'll make someone, gay or Latino or Aborigine or Armenian, and that's all the character is. There's no character beneath it. If they created a good character, they might last a while and readers might begin to enjoy it. I always use the example from the 70s of there was a character at DC called Black Lightning, and he was black, and that's it.
You couldn't make that these days, could you?
Yeah, no, and then there was a character Marvel called Luke Cage, who happened to be black, who was awesome.
Yeah.
And Luke Cage continued. I mean, he's going to have his own television show on Netflix because he was a great character. So they're putting their identity politics first and putting good comics second.
Moving on, and then Comic-Splain says, for those saying people would read new diverse characters if they had their own books, this says otherwise, and he tweets out the statistics for comic books sales. So the thing is, comic book sales in general are down. Not very many comics are selling too well, and that's just how the comic book industry is right now. Hopefully it has a rebound, but right now it's not going too great, even for big name characters. Unless you're Batman or Spider-Man, you're not always guaranteed to sell well. Batman and Spider-Man always sell great in comics, but every other character fluctuates and there's not really any guarantee. So of course a new character is not going to be guaranteed to sell well, but there still are new characters that can break through. Like I mentioned before, Green Lanterns is selling pretty well right now. It sells 30,000 to like 33,000 copies, which isn't amazing, but it's pretty good for the current market, for the current climate. And you also have Dr. Aphra, which is selling really well. It's selling around like 50,000 copies, I believe, and she's a brand new character that's not replacing anyone in the Star Wars universe. She has her own book, and it's selling pretty well. And then you also have, you could count in Super Sons, because Jonathan Kent is a brand new character that was introduced during Convergence as a baby, and then at the tail end of the New 52 and Road to Rebirth was when he really became a character. And Damian Wayne is a Robin that a lot of people hate. Not very many people like him. So, and that's a book that's selling well right now. You have a brand new character and you have Damian Wayne. So yeah, like that's the thing. You have new characters that are selling well that people like, but it's not easy. Of course it's not, but I'm not against sort of using someone as a springboard to help sell these characters. Like, if you want to introduce a brand new character in Marvel and make them an X-Men, that's fine. Just don't make them replace one of the X-Men. Just add them on to the X-Men. If you want to make a new character and add them as part of the Bat family to sort of springboard their sales to be like, hey, if you want to know more about the Bat family, you should read this book with this guy, that's fine, as long as they're not replacing anyone. And I feel like that's very important. Just, there's no reason to go and replace these characters. I think it's pretty stupid. I just think taking choice away from the reader is really stupid and just a moronic thing to do, especially because Marvel has so many books on the shelf right now that they could actually like take away some of these crappy books and add in some of the classic characters and do it easily. Instead, they're just like, more SJW agenda books, and it's just and then Comics Explained, his final tweet about this really the final one I'm going to address on here is, so here's the reason I spent all day giving the anti-diversity crowd a hard time. He talks about Make Mine Milkshake. I already made a video on the Make Mine Milkshake thing because it's complete BS. She just talked about, so if you don't know the whole Make Mine Milkshake thing, what happened was Heather Antos, who's I believe an assistant editor at Marvel, she posted a selfie of her and some other female co-workers getting milkshakes. And she said the next day or whatever, she's like, I got tons of hate for this. Everyone's saying women shouldn't be in the comics industry. I kept getting harassed. Everyone was getting so mad at me. And it was just, the internet's a terrible place. Problem was, she provided like no proof, and in the replies there was like maybe one or two like sort of troll replies. Maybe she got a ton of quote tweets, but when people asked her for actual, you know, to actually provide proof, she didn't do it. And she could have gotten some quote tweets, but again, it's the internet. Everyone gets hate. Everyone gets trolls. I even parodied this tweet on my Twitter talking about how everyone hates straight white males because of some of the hate I've gotten. That's the thing. Most people, when they get hate, they're like, oh, it's the internet. There's people like this out there. She gets some hate, and she's like, oh my gosh, everyone hates women in comics. That's the problem. And she made a huge deal out of it, and it was a big deal for no reason. It was so stupid. It's just because she's so thin-skinned. And that's the whole reason Rob started making these tweets, he said. This whole Make My Milkshake thing is a non-issue. That's what I think is retarded. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the situation. Please let me know in the comments below what you guys think about this whole situation. Do you agree with Comics Explained? Well, do you agree with current Comics Explained, or like 7 months ago Comics Explained? Because I personally agree with Rob 7 months ago. Current Rob, I don't really agree with. So I don't know what happened in between him in like those 7 months. I believe that's when that video was posted. But yeah, Common Sense, I don't know what happened with him. But I hope that Rob is still there somewhere. I really hope he is, because I really like Rob. I think he's a cool dude. He posted a video of him doing sort of the Hot Ones challenge, except explaining Infinity Gauntlet during it, which is a really fun video. He still makes really good content, just he kind of lost his mind here on Twitter. I didn't get it. But anyways, please let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on this whole situation? If you want to extend the conversation, you can follow me on Twitter, which is linked in the description below. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Yeah, I grew up with the prenup. Mama said keep my C up. Now noticing I'm getting caught cracker and getting beat up, but I stayed up long nights, working hard on my craft. Gave a fuck about the bullies or anyone in my path.